Hello, sports fans. We're back. Athletics Chat 81. Stuart, the charming gentleman in the middle, he is in Oxford, England, still the intellectual capital of the world. I'm back from Portland, Oregon, in San Jose, California, for just a couple more weeks. Stuart, greetings and salutations.
Oh, and I think I could say that Oxford, England is probably only about 25 degrees colder than where you are.
Well, I think you're right. You know, we drove up from Big Sur to Santa Cruz, then to Sonoma over the weekend, and windows down, and it was, 25, 28 degrees. So it was pretty special. But I'm going into a place that will be, 0 for the high soon. So I'm just preparing myself. So we're going to try to inspire ourselves again. Kind viewers, this is the beginning of the year, and this is Athletics Chat 81. And let's talk about the indoor series. You're pretty confident it's all going to happen?
Well, yes, but I think that there'll be some restrictions. I mean, for example, I would have loved to have gone to Liévin in France, but President Macron, in his wisdom, is not allowing anyone from the UK in unless they have a very significant reason for going. France has become the COVID capital of Europe at the moment. And so, again, I had thought about going to one of the ones in Germany, but no, I mean, it's an exciting program. There's 36 events, of which 7 are the A events, which is Karlsruhe in Germany, then 2 in the States, the Millrose and New Balance, Liévin in France, then Birmingham in England, the Turin, where sadly again we won't be able to go and get our gingerbread men, and Madrid. So yeah, I mean it looks pretty exciting, and we're being drip fed information about particular races and who is doing what and where. And of course, if you are a British athlete, it's quite a complicated year because you have 4 championships. You have got the World Indoor, then the World Outdoor, then the Commonwealth Games, and then the European. And you could also say the Diamond League and the Diamond League final. So it's potentially a very busy year.
Will you go to the World Indoors?
I'm planning to. I've actually had the confirmation of my accreditation today. So at this stage, I'm planning to. I mean, being fully vaccinated and also having had COVID myself, I feel I'm probably in a less vulnerable position. And I mean, but it's funny anyway. I went to the Olympics in Tokyo and was safe, and then caught COVID probably in my own home from my own family.
Yeah, no, it's the way they're talking about the new Omicron over here. It sounds like they're expecting just about everybody to catch it. The fatality numbers are way down. And the problem in the U.S. is there's still so many knuckleheads who haven't been vaccinated, much less gotten a booster. So,
I mean, certainly that's the situation with us. That I know far more people who have it at the moment or have had it in the last month than any stage. But I mean, I had it. And wasn't ill at all, so it does seem to be a blessing in that way. I don't know the situation with athletes, but certainly with professional soccer players, there's an awful lot who have chosen not to be vaccinated, and there's interesting stuff going on because there are some clubs, franchises, whatever you want to call them, who are saying to players, if you choose not to be vaccinated and you get sick and you can't play, well, we're not paying you.
Which is the way the American football guys should be doing it. There's been prominent American football players, and I'm not going to name anybody because I don't think it's fair. I'm trying to respect people's beliefs, and then there's that very prominent tennis player who Australia, they wouldn't grant him his visa. And I don't know what to say. I mean, to me, if you listen to science class anytime between 8th grade on, most of the stuff is basic science stuff. And you realize that there's evolution in understanding. Like, there was a time when washing hands between surgeries wasn't something people thought about. And then a doctor thought about it during the Crimean War. And he goes, wow, when I wash hands, people don't get infected. What does that mean? So, that's really when that started. And so there's evolution with things. And of course, we're going to understand stuff better later on. But that doesn't mean all science is damned. And that's my issue over here. It's just, I just thought Europe would be much saner. And I'm watching some of the French protests and listening to some of the young people. And part of it's, the lovely French attitude about being anti-government, but it's also a distrust of authority figures and stuff, which is what we're dealing with over here, and I don't know how to, it's difficult to address. So you just don't want people to lose their lives. And I hope some calmer attitudes prevail. I'm going to try, right now I'm planning on Millrose. I've got accreditation for that. That's the last week in January. I've been to Karlsruhe before and loved that meeting. It's a great little facility. But this year the season separated a little weird. I've been to the Madrid meet, which was fantastic, and I love Birmingham. I might try to, but I think I'm going to be able to afford one trip over. So what my belief is, it will probably be Belgrade, do the U.S. champs and then do Belgrade. And then also the New Balance indoor, because I think I've missed the New Balance indoor once or twice since 1996. So it's a fun meet, but they're doing New Balance on Staten Island. They're not even doing it in Boston again because the Reggie Lewis Center is being used for vaccination. So they don't even get to use the track. So, the famous track for them. So that'll be interesting. Talk to me about these interviews you've been doing.
No, just before we leave this, what I was getting on to say that with with 4 championships, it'll be interesting to see how many athletes actually do 4. I think that some will probably opt out of the indoor this year and say, I can't really be peaking in March and then peaking again in July and August. So we may find that certainly for British athletes that the indoor is not quite as big as some years. But again, I'll be able to see how many American athletes decide to come to Europe, given that the complexities of country to country. For example, there's this weekend there's significant rugby games in France between English and French clubs, but there is a rumor that everyone's going to have to quarantine for 48 hours before the game. And so if countries were to put that kind of thing in, it may actually mean it's not possible for somebody to come and travel around Europe. If you have to quarantine in countries before you can do that, and also governments change the regulations at very short notice. And our government has been criticised a lot for allowing people to go to Spain or Portugal, say, and then saying, "Oh, we changed the rules. You have to quarantine before you can come home." So I think it'll be worked out almost on a weekly basis who's going to be where, and don't be surprised if people are dropping out at short notice.
Will athletes like Jody Williams, are you expecting her to compete in all four?
I'd expect her to do the 3 outdoor ones. It's an interesting one. I mean, I haven't spoken to her and I haven't seen what the plans are. I've read that Laura Muir is not going to do the indoor. I think I may have read that in RunBlogRun. But then, I mean, it's interesting that I had a good conversation with Andy Young, her coach, just a couple of weeks ago. And I mean, the point that he made is that he encourages his athletes to do indoor races, but they don't actually target them. You know, they don't break the training, or they don't focus the training on doing an indoor race. So, and I mean, again, Laura, I know, is doing a race in Glasgow that I'm planning to go to. But she has just decided that in order to give the World Championship outdoor in July her best shot, that running indoor championship in March is not going to be the way to prepare. And, you know, at the end of the day, if she gets a medal in Oregon, who will remember what she did in Belgrade?
No, that's, you know, Laura moved to that next level with what she did in Tokyo. Not only was it fantastic that she medaled, but it's the way she did it too. And she raced with maturity and a level of confidence that we hadn't seen in her before, you know, and you know, we've watched her for such a long time. I just remember in 17 watching how agonizingly close and knowing that she had to be devastated, you know, and never saw an ill word out of her. No, she had to be frustrated, but also seems to she has a confidence in herself. And I think that's one of the themes with what we saw last year too, especially the athletes that broke out.
Yeah, she would say that she's an awful lot stronger now than she was in 2016, 2017. 2019, she was a lot stronger, but then she got injured and missed so much training. That means she still ran a ridiculously fast time in Doha for 5th, I think it was. But I mean, she would say, well, the injury, that the thing about Tokyo is, one, I'm a lot stronger, and two, I was fit the whole year. So I had no setbacks, and that she had had problems in her 2 previous championships. So yeah, and again, see, Laura has only been a full-time athlete for 2-3 years because she was studying to be a vet, and we don't have sports scholarships, so there's no sense in which she has a program tailored to her. You know, basically, she's doing a very intense course to be a vet, and had to fit training around it, and struggled to rest and recover sometimes, because if you've got a full day in the lab, you know, when a professional athlete might be sitting with their feet up. So you know, Laura is absolutely at her peak, and it'll be fascinating to see what she can do. I think it's good for her that Oregon comes first of the 3. She every chance of getting a medal. The Commonwealth, she could win that. I mean, you might say it depends a bit on whether Faith Kipyegon decides to run the Commonwealth Games or not. And the European, again, you could say, unless Sifan Hassan decides that she's going to target the 1500, that Laura would be a favourite for that as well. And I'm not saying she can't. I'm not saying she can't beat Hassan, because obviously she did in Tokyo.
Talk about Keely Hodgkinson for a while. Has she talked about what she wants? I seem to recall reading that she's going to do the 3 outdoors or not.
Yeah. I mean, I read that, but I mean, I'd be very surprised if she wasn't. I mean, Alphonse Zook announced that as if he was announcing that somebody split the atom. You know, if you're 19, why on earth would you not do the 3? Particularly when the most important one comes first. So I would always have expected to do that. I gather she's actually taken a break from university so that she can be a full-time athlete. And she has got the best coaching setup really you could have, because Trevor Painter, her coach, has a lot of experience, and of course he's married to Jenny Meadows, so she has got in Jenny somebody who's been there, done it, and so yeah, I think it'll be fascinating to see how she develops this year, but again, I think it doesn't go automatically that she will beat Gemma Ricci, because Gemma Ricci was ahead of her for most of the Tokyo final, and Gemma missed the medal by a few hundredths of a second. And I mean, Gemma, I think, has always got such a great attitude. I spoke to her in Zurich when she had finished behind Keely, and what she was saying was, right, what I need to do is go home, talk to my coach, identify what was lacking in my race, and do something about it. And I mean, I just think that kind of attitude was just so brilliant, to be not to be sulking, pouting, whatever, but just saying, okay, I came short today, so what I need to do is go back and identify what was lacking in my training, so that the next time I'm in that position, I'm stronger.
You're correct. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that they're fascinating to watch. They're all 3 different athletes, and I did get a kick out of Keely, again, all of 19, saying she needs some more bling. And that was pretty amusing. When you look at Keely and you look at a thing Mu, and you see that they're both 19, and that we should see both of them around, gosh, till 2032. Maybe 2036. It's pretty exciting. But this is a total off the subject thing. How is British media covering the Beijing 2022 Olympics? Is there any big buildup for it right now?
Not really, but then again, we are not really a winter sports country, because we don't have snow. I mean, obviously there will be a team there. The British government has followed other countries by saying that we're not going to send ministers to it. We're not going to do any of the diplomatic recognition of it. Yeah, I mean, Winter Olympics would be, I don't know, 10% of the coverage that a Summer Olympics would get. It will be interesting to see how many journalists go. again, I would have thought it certainly would be a lot less than half, perhaps a third of the number who were in Tokyo.
If you had wanted to go to the Torun meet in Poland, would you be able to go, or is there too many quarantines, Stuart?
No, I think at the moment I would be able to, but I just think for this year it's just not a time to be doing trips. I mean, for example, I was looking at going to the Liévin, which is 2 days before Birmingham. At the moment, there's problems with getting into France. But even if I did get into France, you could easily find yourself unable to get from France back to UK in time for the other meeting, and I'd rather go to Birmingham. So, although, I mean, I was saying to my wife, actually, that the sad thing about the Liévin is the best food on the circuit.
Yeah, that's what I felt about. I went to the French Elite Championships in Lyon in 2017, and the lunch they had for the media, it's the first time I had been served wine and quiche, at a.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And that was pretty impressive. And I think my writing was the better for it, And
I'm sure.
Do you? Is there problems coming into the UK right now from the US?
I don't think
like
so.
us? Okay.
No, I think my sister-in-law is going to the States tomorrow, in fact, and so I think that up until late in the year, that was quite difficult, if not impossible. But now it seems all of them opened up again, so that's fine. Yeah, no, you mentioned interviews. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually had a great opportunity to talk to Ryan Crosser, who is always, I think, such good value. And it was a piece for Athletics Weekly, that monthly magazine called Athletics Weekly.
Yes, one we love. Yep.
On the A to Z of the shot put. And I just found it really, he's so erudite, whatever you would say, just the way he speaks about his discipline. I mean, I remember I asked him whether being tall was an advantage or a disadvantage for the shot put. And a very thoughtful answer. He says, well, it's an advantage in terms of having longer arms. I've got stronger levers. But then the pesky circle is pretty small. And so he said, if I tried to do a Thomas Walsh across it, I would be filing out. So he's had to develop his own method, which generates the maximum speed he can while being sufficiently in control that he doesn't file out.
No, it's fascinating to watch the guys in the spin and how they control things and how relaxed they stay too, And I'm always taken by, I remember a conversation with Carl Lewis one time where I asked him, he told me that he sprinted best when he was the most relaxed and he didn't force it. And I asked him about that, and he said, yeah, I said, well, could you tell when you're going to run really, really fast? And he said, it's when he was the most relaxed. And it was so interesting. I go back to the beginning of last year with Ryan, with that American record in the first throw at the American Track League. And, most guys in the first throw in the shot, they're kind of getting all their stuff together. And boy, he was all there, And he is a unique specimen. And I still think there's a great argument for him and Karsten Warholm tying. But, it's I just don't want anybody to underrate what Ryan did, you know?
When you win every competition and you win the Olympics and you break the world record, perhaps you could explain to me what more people wanted him to do.
Well, he's a fine fisherman. I just saw that he got his first largemouth bass of the season, and it was like 0 degrees in Arkansas. You could see the fog coming off the lake. There was a picture on Instagram. So got to respect him for that, Stuart, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we should start a campaign. Unless Warholm has caught a fish, then we're going to ask the World Athletics to revoke the award and give it to Ryan as being a more all-round sportsman.
I think we need to add the fishing category. Yes. There was an Instagram video that was put up last week with Karsten and 2 women training partners. They were on a track covered with about 3 inches of snow. And I think they were doing repeat 300s. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah. I remember Jakob Ingebrigtsen in Gateshead when the weather was terrible. And somebody said to him, how do you feel about running in the rain? He just looked at the questioner and said, I'm from the west coast of Norway. Now, what was your question about weather?
I remember that 800-meter runner, was it Vordal? Was it Thomas Vordal? He talked about running in a mine. He had a 300-meter strip marked out in a mine that's where he would do it during the coldest part of the year. And I just go, oh my gosh, you know, the cannot complain about a rainy day, you know, never can. What did you learn about interviewing Malaika Bihambo?
Well, I was particularly proud of myself that my German stood up to it.
Yes, I listened to half of that audio, Stuart. Yeah. Didn't understand a word, but I was quite impressed, you know.
Well, I just felt that she would express herself more clearly if she was speaking her own language. And I was impressed with her. I mean, I've got a piece for you on Ryan and on Malaika coming in a week or two. Yeah, I mean, we talked about how she had won the European Championship in Berlin and will be defending it in Munich, and just the experience of competing in your own country. And I mean, it's interesting. She said, I think now I understand what life must have been like for Usain Bolt, because that night when I was competing, there were 60,000 people in the stadium, and it seemed that everywhere I looked, there was a camera pointing at me.
Yeah.
And again, I'm always interested in some of the technical stuff. And I mean, she sort of talked about, I mean, I asked her what caused a foul. And she said, well, usually it's either because you're too close to the board or you're not close enough to the board. Well, thanks very much. Now I understand it.
Yeah, I thought that she had a fascinating season, and she came in at the right time. I mean, the European indoor was a tough one for her, but she competed well at that time. And then, but boy, did she put it together in Tokyo, you know?
Well, I mean, she would actually say she had a nightmare season because you mentioned the struggles at the European indoors. She said that then she didn't make the transition from indoor to outdoor with the longer run-up very well. So she really was struggling with the rhythm. She had some very bad competitions. She was struggling a bit in the Olympic final, and of course won it with her last jump. And then she got injured and said, really, if I'd been sensible, I should have shut down. But I kept going, and it was a struggle. And then she went to the world, to the Diamond League final. And she said that wasn't a failure. I did the best I could do, given the state of my body. But there's one other thing which amused me. Jonathan Edwards used to say that the best moment for him was when you have the last jump and you're in second place and you have to produce the jump to win it.
Yeah.
That's just the best moment. I said that to Malaika and she said, well, I quite like actually getting the big jump in early. I don't mind if it's not so exciting. And she reminded me, of course, in Doha, she had jumped 7:30 with about her third or fourth jump. And she said, no, I'm quite happy to win easily. I don't have to make it exciting.
No, I think I think we all could appreciate that. That's got to be, I mean, it's wonderful for the fans and the media to watch, but the athlete performing when the pressure is on, that's the challenge, you know?
Can I just add as well that sometimes dealing with Olympic champions can be a little bit difficult, and people can think that they're terribly important. That the way I got that interview, I spoke to Malaika in Zurich and said, would you consider doing an interview with me? And she said, yes. Contact my agent, Tanya. And Tanya was an absolute delight to deal with. And, you know, but the second email we exchanged, I knew it was going to happen. And they delivered absolutely everything that they'd offered. So I would just like to say what a pleasure it was to deal with Tanya, who arranges the interviews for Malaika. And Malaika herself, of course, was very giving.
Now, it's really nice. It's actually really important for athletes to, if they want to control their narrative, if they want people to understand them, they need to talk to media. But there's some times that, and especially during Olympic seasons, when they unfortunately have to speak with media who they tend to have to educate, who may have been, it's their first track meet, right? Their first track season. And the only questions they know are about doping, and they don't know anything about the long jump or the difference between the long jump and the triple jump, or the shot put, the javelin. And I've watched athletes get insulted. I watched, Valerie Adams. And Valerie is always painfully honest, but I could see she was frustrated one time. I was with a group of British riders, and surprisingly, a couple of the riders really didn't know a lot about Valerie. And pretty much she suggested that maybe they do a little homework before she wasn't rude, but they do a little homework before they do the interview. And I think that's really important. If you don't understand your subject, if you don't appreciate your subject, then how can you do it? You also, we're getting down to our last five, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about one of our favorites, Katie Anajia.
Yeah. How
did that go?
Well, I mean, I have become quite fascinated, obsessed, whatever, with the women's pole vault, and in a way, it's all Katie's fault. She and Sally Scott, because I met Katie in the transit lounge in Abu Dhabi when we were both on our way to Doha, and I never really thought about these things. So we arrived in Doha together, and I'm looking for my suitcase. Katie is worrying whether her poles have arrived. There's a minibus to take us to the hotel, but the door isn't in the right place to get the poles in. So the poles have to go in through a window. And I had actually no idea that all this kind of stuff happened. And Katie would just say, well, that's my life. And then this year, she got COVID, and then her poles were broken. And then she got food poisoning. And, you know, perfect preparation for the Olympics, wouldn't you say? And then she just produced it brilliantly. And I mean, actually, again, she did well she just had one vault in the qualifying. But then on the actual final itself, her leg kept grabbing. And she failed her first two vaults in the Olympic final. And she looked anything but an Olympic champion. But I mean, she said she realized afterwards, because she wasn't able to warm up properly, effectively her first two attempts were her warm-up. And then it went on. And then when it got down to the final three, it was Holly Bradshaw, who's a close friend of hers. And she said, I went over to Holly and said, we've made it. We're both on the podium. And Holly just dismissed her and said, the competition's not over yet. And
That's good.
Yeah, I enjoy talking to her. Again, I've got 3 articles from that coming up.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to those.
Yeah.
I'll be posting your pieces that you sent up the last couple of days, my friend.
Good.
And thank you again. It's great seeing you. Stay safe. And we will chat next week for Athletics Chat 82. This is Larry Eder with Stuart Weir, Athletics Chat 81. Thank you to our production manager, Mike Deering, who is so patient with us and tries to keep us, well, especially me, on time, because Stuart's always on time. But I have an issue with timeliness, and it's part of his 12-step program. But thank you again, Michael and Stuart. Love you, buddy. Stay safe, and have a good week. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, sports fans. Larry Eder, Athletics Chat number 81. This is the epilogue, or the Larry monologue. You know, it's not exactly a combo with Larry, but the parameters are the same, keeping it at 5 minutes, which means Michael, has to warn me when we hit 2.5. So we took a little break over the holiday and hadn't recorded anything since about the 13th of December. And our session went well. It's Stuart, as you know, Stuart Weir, who is our European editor. He is based in Oxford, England. It is just about freezing there. And this is Larry Eder. I'm in San Jose, California. It's about 65 degrees out here right now. And I'll be going back to Wisconsin in a couple of weeks to freeze for 6 weeks so I can appreciate my friends in Wisconsin and why we love cheddar cheese and beer so much. So what we're talking about is early this morning, World Athletics released the list of 36 meets on the World Athletics Indoor Tour 2022. 6 of them are gold level meets. Karlsruhe starts out on the 28th, Millrose in New York on the 29th. New Balance is on the 6th. Then we have, I believe, Birmingham on the 17th, Torun on the 19th. And then on the 2nd of March, it is in Madrid, Spain. I've been to the meet in Madrid. I've been to Torun, absolutely love that. I've been to Birmingham, adore that meet. Karlsruhe is a lot of fun, and so is Millrose and Boston. This year, my guess is Stuart will be in Birmingham. I will be in, hopefully, the New Balance Indoor, which will be not Boston, but Staten Island, and then the Millrose games. And then we're both hoping to go to Belgrade, Serbia, the middle of March for the World Indoor Champs. But we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. It's all about the Omicron and our Omicron. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong as usual. The newest COVID strain, and which seems to be worldwide. They think that half the people in Europe will have it in the next 2 months. And each country, and right now France is shutting stuff down. They're not letting people from the UK come there. And we will keep you updated on that. And my concern about going to some of the meets in Europe is getting stuck somewhere. So we'll have to see how things go and keep our fingers crossed. But we will keep you updated on that. The other things that we talked about today were for British athletes. They've got 4 championships this year. They've got the World Indoors, they've got the World Outdoors, they've got the Commonwealth, and they've got the Europeans. How many are going to do all 4? Well, we know Laura Muir probably right now is going to focus on all 3 of the outdoor meets. We think Keely Hodgkinson will probably do the same. Gemma Reike, we'll have to see what she chooses. And it'll be interesting for some of the other athletes as well. Championships take a lot out of you. And we've got championship years right now in 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. I think we have a break in 2026, then 2027, and 2028. So the next 5 of the next 6 years, there'll be global championships. And how does that affect a career? Well, a lot of athletes will get a chance to focus on, if they focus correctly, if they take the time and really decide how they want to do things, build a nice resume for their career. And I think those things are important, not only for their CVs, but also for their financial situations. Running is doing well right now. Running shoe sales are way up. What's interesting, though, is how many of the brands are letting go of athletes. There's very few that are picking up athletes at this time. Adidas has picked up a few on running. I think Brooks has picked up a few, but most of the brands are letting people go, even when sales are going crazy. So kind of interesting. Look to see interviews with Ryan Krauser, Malaika Bihambo, and Katie Naggio by Stuart Weir on RunBlogRun shortly. We've just moved to new servers. We did that over the holiday. And today is January 11th. And you should be seeing some a nice plethora of stories going up on RunBlogRun. But thanks again to everyone, including Mike Deering, our production manager, for managing the Athletics Chat all last year, socially the distance, and combos with Larry. And looking forward to having a great year with everybody. Stay safe. Please wear a mask indoors. Get vaccinated. Get the additional booster shot that you need, and exercise. Okay? Be careful. Love your families and your friends. Say something nice each day, and stay safe.